started to fall, and where were you? How could I know you were falling too? Grabbing the wind, cutting my skin, but it's hard because I'm falling. Tell me why I'm falling.
All right. Excuse me. Happy Sunday to you all. My name is 12 Gauge, and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I thought I'd get on here today because not only is it Sunday, it's kind of the chill day for people to just stop on in and just talk about their day. Because, I don't know about you guys, but it's been a hectic week for me. And I haven't just sat around and talked to you guys like I'm going to do today in a while. Oh, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that at all. I mean, you could have came in later. I appreciate that though. But you didn't have to do that. I'm trying to figure all this out where I want to put myself on this damn stage. I guess right there at work. Yeah, tell them to come watch. I was doing Serenity Sunday for a long time and it never caught on. It never really caught on. Some people enjoyed it, some people did not. Some people got a lot out of it. But, one thing that I wanted to discuss today are two things that are important to my heart. One of them is addiction, and the other one is violence against women, children, or anyone in particular. Because these three things are dear to me, and they mean a lot. Because I'm sorry, I'm messing my stuff up for some reason. Hold on a second. They're important to me because nobody really talks about them. Nobody really honestly sits there and talks about the effects of violence on individuals. And I think it's sad that we don't talk about this stuff. I think it's sad that we don't talk about addiction more than we do. I believe that addiction is a strong topic that needs to be spoken on. You know, um, I think that one's better. I like that one better. Good morning, everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. You know, when it comes to addiction, we seem to have a big problem with fentanyl in the US, around the world, and people act like it's not a big deal. We seem to have a problem with domestic violence, people being in relationships, not being able to handle the rejection factor of it and killing their significant others. That is a huge problem. We have a problem with people minimizing the criminal aspect of humanity. Somebody commits a crime, automatically we must turn it into a game. And I don't understand any of that. I guess it's just showing my age, it's just showing my my position in life. Because as you all know, I've been working with drug addicts and alcoholics for a very long time. I've been working with criminal offenders for an even longer time. You know, and am I saying that all people that commit crimes are evil, as we talk about on this channel? No, not all of them. But there are a selective few that do have that evil moniker to them. You know, um, and those are the individuals that should be looked at as potentially continuing to harm our society, to harm our kids, to harm our women, to harm our businesses, to harm everything around us that they can get their hands on. And for whatever reason, we just don't see that in people. We don't see that in people. We tend to want to see the good with there's nothing wrong with that. But people show you who they are within probably an hour of meeting them. They're going to show you who they are. You know, that leads to my next topic is the violence on women. Violence on women is huge in this country as well as other countries. All these things are important to discuss. Important to discuss because, on average, a woman is attacked. I think they said every 36 minutes. There's people working out, jogging, walking across parking lots, doing all these types of things, being in supermarkets. I remember a case that I covered very early on in my channel. I don't know if you've heard of it, but this individual was walking into a Target to get a graduation gift. She was, I think, 19 years old, maybe 18, 19 years old. A gentleman followed her throughout the store. She was on the phone with her mother. He follows her around the store, you know, preying on her. Well, she gets what she's getting. He gets what he's getting. She walks out, none the wiser of she's being followed whatsoever. She walks to her car. All of a sudden, she's thrown in the car, told to shut up and sit down. She had a gun pointed at her. He drives her vehicle to a mall, and he does what he does to her, and she's never heard from again. They find her vehicle. They see the surveillance. It's so awful to think about how you could just be going to grab a graduation gift for a loved one and then you lose your life in behind it. I don't want to put out the message that, this world is evil around every corner because there are some good parts of this world. But women are the prey of a lot of sick individuals' mindsets. And I've talked about this more often than not, and it's not a popular opinion amongst other men when I talk about this because they feel offended. They feel like I'm talking about them, which I'm not, unless they are a predator. But let's face it, there are predators in this world around every corner. If you really look into how many people are abducted, how many people are murdered, how many people are never seen from again. It's a scary thought. But what are we going to do? Live our lives under a rock? No, we're not. But you can be mindful. Mindful of your surroundings. There's so many cases that I've covered about women just exercising on trails. Rachel Morin was just running. Lake and Riley were just running. And so on and so on. There's Missy Beavers were just going to a morning aerobic class. Just doing what they usually do and living their lives. And they were attacked and violently murdered. So you don't believe that this is a problem? Do you believe that these women that are just being abducted from the upper northwest coast, the indigenous women that are being slaughtered, and the children, do you think that's not a problem either? I believe that it's just terrible. It's just terrible how we view true crime as just a soap opera at times. How we view true crime as a soap opera. How it just, well, we're going to tune in today for the next episode of what can we conspire today to make ourselves feel not as horrified about this crime. But the truth of the matter is, true crime is true crime, and it's very violent. It's very uncontrollable, and it's very, very strategic in the mindsets of the sick individual that commit it. You know, you're in the grocery store. Do you ever look around your surroundings? Do you ever look around, make sure nobody's snapping pictures of you? Do you ever make sure that people aren't following you from afar or staring at you from afar? When you're walking out to your car, are you on your phone? You'd be shocked how many people I notice walking into Walmart, HEB, any of these stores, how many people are on their phones and could be taken advantage of in an instant. But nobody wants to hear about that. Nobody wants to hear about that. They want to hear about just the flowers and the fairy tales and everything else about true crime. And the reality is, there are no flowers. The only flowers that are the flowers that we put on the graves of our loved ones that get taken away way too soon. That's the flowers that there are in true crime. And I'm not trying to be negative today. I'm just trying to be honest. Happy Sunday to you all that are in here. I hope that you don't run off because you think this is negative, but you should be used to it if this is the true crime that you watch. Nothing ever said on other panels is very positive. It's always conspiracy. It's always talking about what if, and the people left behind are the problem. They're the victim. They're the ones that commit certain crimes, and they're the ones that should be looked at. And all this, that, and the other. The missing kids that are missing in this world. I get Amber Alerts not so much as I used to in a period in time, but I was getting up to 2 a day, almost 3 a day sometimes. Excuse me. And I don't know in your state what kind of alert system y'all have, if y'all have the Amber Alert. If you do, you understand what I mean. When that thing goes off, it startles you, you know? And I want to talk about how women are preyed upon not only by perpetrators openly to harm them, but they're groomed. Men and women are groomed to get what they want, what other people want from them. And if you don't know what the grooming process is, that's when people do and say anything to get you to bring your guard down so they can eventually put you in a spot where you feel no way out, where you feel that you have to be a part of their to conspire to do ill will because you feel no way out. A case that I think of instantly is the the corrections officer that helped the other inmate escape. Both of their names were White. I can't remember what the woman's name was offhand. I was watching that earlier, but um, he groomed her to help him escape. She ended up dying at her own hand, and he was the one that was just taken into custody. We hear about all these cases. We hear about two little girls walking on a bridge on a beautiful day, and all of a sudden they notice a man out of nowhere walking behind them. In the video that we've seen, he tells them to go down the hill, and no longer are they found alive after that. But then again, we have people that don't believe that he could have been the one that's in prison, could have been the one capable of doing such. We must presume that everybody's innocent before we find them guilty. But we don't give other people the simple courtesy of that. And I hope that spreads. Yeah, Vicky White, that was her name. Thank you, Rondi. I hope that ends up spreading because that's the message that everybody in these chats needs to spread. When you hear individuals standing up for anybody's presumption of innocence until proven guilty, then hold them accountable when they presume innocent people as being guilty without any shadow of proof that they were involved in any crime that they put them in. You know, I ask you to stand up for it. If it's going to be ran in one direction, it needs to be fair all the way across the board. It really does. Because I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. I'm sick and tired of hearing innocence until proven guilty. Okay, but if you go against anything that anybody thinks about a certain case, all of a sudden they start calling you names, making fun of you, blah blah blah, all this other crap. But yet somebody mentioned that this person could have had something to do with something, and all of a sudden they're guilty. They don't get that presumption of innocence. You know what I mean? So I just want y'all to be mindful of that and spread that around because, there's a lot of people that don't like what I say. And they don't like it because it's open, it's honest, and it's to the point. You get what I'm saying? Open, honest, and to the point. Because a lot of times it goes against their narrative, it goes against what they're trying to do on YouTube. You know what? If you're trying to make money on YouTube, make your money. I have no objection to that. If you're a liar, be a liar. If you're this or you're that, be who you are. But you know what? Don't attack other people who don't believe what you believe. You want to push your stuff, push your stuff. But when somebody steps up to you or questions your statement or anything, don't turn your chat on them. Don't make them feel like they're stupid because they believe what they believe and then 2 seconds later say, well, all opinions are valuable here. No, they're not. No, they're not. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy in the true crime community. And it's sad that it doesn't get called out more than it does, you know? Hey, Juliet. You know, I guess because when you call it out, then people have to stick to who they are. It's like you can't be friends with somebody else who hangs out in another chat because all of a sudden you're conspiring with the enemy. When did it become good versus evil in the true crime community? Honestly, when did it become that? I've only been in here for a year and 5 months and a couple days. And I've seen it turn so many damn times from people just attacking other people to people, doxing people to people doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but focusing on the case and the victim at hand. I don't know this case very well, so I don't like to talk about it, but there's still a 15-year-old, or he's 16 now. There's still a 16-year-old boy missing. And I see hashtags all over the place. Sebastian Rogers, Sebastian Rogers. But you go into these chats and nobody's talking about Sebastian. They're talking about the dad, the stepdad, the mom, and how horrible these people are, depending on what side you stand with that case. They're accusing everybody under the sun. How they're not even searching anymore. There's still some people, I think, that are still searching. But most of the time, people put those hashtags to create a platform so that you can come every day and just listen to me talk crap about this other panel who talk crap about the mom and dad of whatever side you're on. It's like if you don't click up to a side, then you're irrelevant on these streets. But one thing I know for certain is I tried to make some friends on these streets, but you see who they are very quickly. And I'm one of those people that I stand on my own 2 feet. Sure, I can appear friendly and I can be cordial and I can be all the above, but don't mistake the kindness for weakness because I'm not weak by any means. And that's something that a lot of people seem to forget in true crime is people can find out who you are very quickly and they can fact check your lies, your truth, what you've done, what you haven't done, what you're a part of, how they do it to the parents and families in these other crimes, they dox them like crazy. Hell, I bet everybody at the grub truck in the Idaho 4 case has been doxxed. They know everything about every student and even the employees probably at that grub truck. It seems that way. It seems like there's certain creators that know everything about Moscow. You get what I'm saying? But I try to stay away from the Sebastian Rogers case because that's all that's become. It just I'm gonna go against you, you're gonna go against me, we're gonna talk about each other, we're gonna talk about the guests, we're gonna make up all these conspiracies that I saw a man with a green hoodie that supposedly had Sebastian, blah blah blah. Like I said, I don't know a lot about the case, but there's some stuff that sticks out. And that stuck out to me and I was like, okay, instead of talking about this for hours, why aren't you reporting it to law enforcement? Why aren't you reporting it to law enforcement? And the Stephen Stearns case, that's another case that I did a little bit about Stephen Stearns, but once again, it's one of those things that only leads you so far. You got the evidence, but you got the mom and the mom boyfriend, and he said, she said, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's another case I just stayed away from. It's horrible what happened to Maddie. Despicable that would have went on in her life for as young as she was. But I stayed away from that case because there's really no in and out of it. You just get trapped in it. Do I believe Stefan's where he needs to be? Of course I do. Do I believe the mom should be implicated or arrested? The judgment's out for that because like I said, I don't know enough about that case to find one way or the other. Whether she knew, whether she didn't know, whether she's mentally challenged, whether she had the capacity to understand certain things, whether she was just using him for financial or loneliness or whatever, that didn't contribute to the murder of her daughter. What she was doing it for did not contribute to it. You know, there's been no report that she was in the vehicle when he dumped her by the trees. No reports. They didn't see her helping him change the car tire. None of those reports. So I have to say, I got to give that mom a little bit of leeway because until you hear more definitive things about her where you can actually see criminal activity that is charged to her, other than having that guy living in their home, that's a moral judgment right there. That is not a criminal judgment. You can have whoever you want living in your home. That's not a criminal act. Like if I become homeless and then you invite me to your home and I commit a crime in your home, are you liable for inviting me into your home? whether you may have thought that I was or wasn't doing anything, are you liable? That's a moral judgment right there. Like I said, I don't know enough about these cases. Y'all can chat on them. If you know them, just don't get into a fight in the chat about your beliefs, okay? I'm just throwing these cases out there because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there right now. The Gilgo Beach killer. I recently watched a documentary on, I think it was Netflix, about his crime because I did a search, a research on his criminal activity. That one interests me because of the methodology of that individual being able to do those things without being seen and being in plain sight. You know that case really interests me. And the fact that, how we say that police are corrupt and this and that and the other. I wouldn't say that the police are corrupt. I believe that they're understaffed. There's a lot of things that 20 officers can do that 17 or 13 can't do. You understand what I mean by that? And I'm not making any excuses for the police. I'm just saying that there is a difference in manpower. You're tired, you're overworked, you make mistakes that you normally wouldn't make because, hell, you're having to do the job of three people sometimes. But people don't show any grace toward the police. They don't show any grace toward the fire department. They don't show any grace toward medical professionals or social workers or anything else other than the criminal element. That has to make you wonder a little bit. What has made society so angry that they turn on believing in the government, in the laws of this country, the Constitution, and everything in between? Like I tell the juveniles all the time that I counsel and do classes for, I tell them straight up, you don't want to be on supervision, don't break the law. It's that simple. You don't want people telling you what to do, don't come in here. This isn't your domain. We didn't come out and recruit you. You broke the law and you earned a spot in here. So, regardless of what happened, we're here to help you overcome that to get to a successful life. If you don't want that, if you're already at the point where you say F society and F everything, there's very little we can do. And that's the sad part about humanity is these juveniles are growing up to be adults who are having multitudes of children who they're passing along these beliefs to that are going to be breaking into your home, that are going to be shooting up your houses, that are going to be selling dope on your street, that are going to be stealing stuff out of your yard or your cars or all these things or holding you up with a gun or a knife or something. And what are you going to do? Are you going to be okay with that? No. At that point, you're going to be angry and you're going to be calling for the police and you're going to be wanting justice because you were violated and you don't stand for that. But guess what? Those police that you've demonized all these years, they're going to have less power because the criminals continue to sue for unwillful this, unwillful that, breaking their rights and all this other stuff. Where, does it happen? Yes, it does sometimes, but it doesn't always happen. How would you handle it today if you were in the mall and you get into an altercation with the cashier and she spits in your face? Tell me honestly, how would you handle that? How would you handle that? Because that's a real possibility. Because most people in humanity do not have the coping skills to deal with conflict as it arises. They turn to violence. How would you handle that if somebody, you were in a, let's say, TJ Maxx, and you were shopping and you didn't have the tag on whatever you were buying, and you were telling them that there was this price and whatever, and she was arguing with you and she refused to go look it up, and she got angry in her feelings and spit in your face. Rondi says, get the manager. Kung Fu kick the counter, spaz out, knock over the candy counter. See, one would go get the manager, one would try to use violence. Can I speak to your manager? Plot twist. I am the manager. There you go. But that's a real life scenario. You know? Real life scenario. Or worse, what if you're working, you are the worker, and someone starts arguing with you and claiming that you got their order wrong or whatever, and getting angry and irate because you won't give them a discount or a free fried pie because that's what they want, and they spit in your face, and you're the employee. How would you handle that? Oh, against the candy counter? Okay, I got you. I mean, I know this is disgusting, but I've seen it happen. I've seen people get irate at the employee because the coupon said $2.99. So they want to pay $2.99. They don't want to pay the tax. So they're getting irate at the employee because the coupon says $2.99 and they don't want to pay the tax. So they get irate. It's a very volatile world we live. Very volatile. Nothing shocks people anymore. Nothing really makes people sit back and go, whoa, what if that happened to me? What if that happened to my family? But everybody's the expert at how somebody should handle it or what they would do if they were in that position or how they would address the person. Yeah, they would address them just like they do on YouTube, anonymously, with anger and hate in their heart, or with ridicule, or with just cowardness. Can you imagine if, because I'm being a little silly here, but there's a lot of comments. Sometimes people, they blast you, they go after you, and then they go, "You're such a," and they put the clown face. Can you imagine if somebody really said that to you in real life, that you didn't know, that you've never met, that you're having a conversation with somebody else and they jump in and all of a sudden they're yelling at you, and somebody jumps in and they're yelling at you from the back, and another person calling you names and yelling at you and ridiculing you from the back, because that's what in essence it is online, is you're having a conversation with somebody, and all these people who you've never met jump into the conversation because they don't like what you say. They're calling you names, they're calling you clown, they're calling you this, they're calling you that. Can you imagine how that would be in real life? I don't know. Then we have the self righteous people who never do anything wrong on YouTube. They're the angels of YouTube. They're the ones that always are the peacemakers, and they're the ones that never do anything wrong. They're the ones who everybody wants to be their uncle or their aunt or their grandma or whoever. Whatever happened to being the real you? Whatever happened to being the real you? Yeah, don't get me started on Gabby Petito. Gabby Petito case. I don't know. I thought I'd hop on here and spread awareness for these women that live alone, work in not so good environments. For the addicted that have trouble managing their mental health or their emotions or their understanding of their addiction. That's an interesting thought right there, Leslie. Said some of us lost ourselves a long time ago. So social media gave people the opportunity to create the person who you really want to be instead of the person that you don't like. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying, if we go with your theory, that's in essence what happened. Elizabeth Smart is still advocating for missing kids. She's in the news again. She should be. Who better to do it? But there should be 100 Elizabeth Smart next to her marching and advocating because nobody cares until it's your kid that goes missing. I'm friends with Emma Baum's sister on Facebook from Gary, Indiana, the pregnant woman who was almost going to give birth and she went missing. She still hasn't been heard from. Almost a year and something now. She went missing in October of 2024, I think. Well, being yourself is one thing, but being violent and aggressive towards each other is another. You know what I mean? I don't mind people talking what they talk in the channel. I don't care. But once it gets started, people then start attacking the panel guests. They start attacking me. They start attacking each other in the chat, and that gets out of whack too fast. You know what I mean? And that's a survival mentality right there, chick bait. You can either let that what happened to you dictate where you're going in life, or you can stand up and go against it and become the survivor. The verbal stuff is as violent as any physical violence, in my opinion. That's why I don't post every day. People can be very mean. Yeah, they can. Email me that, Leslie. That way I can remember it. Um, they can be very mean, but you know what? If you ever look at some of these people that are being mean like that, once you see who they are, once they come on camera, or once they talk on somebody's panel, you're like, oh, I get it. I get it wholeheartedly why you're the way you are. And that's no judgment. It is the truth. They're angry because they have jealousy in their heart, they have anger in their heart, they have irritability, they have lack of self esteem, they have all these things going on with them. And the only way that they feel good about themselves is by talking crap about other people in various ways. You know? Most of these people don't work, they're on disability, they're and no hate on the disability people. Not hating on anybody today. I'm just calling it for what it is. A lot of these people don't work. They have severe health issues and they're angry at the world because of their health issues or whatever it might be. And so they get on here and they take a stance on something because that's the only way that they can regain their power and control in life. So therefore they go against other people who don't think the way they do because they're tired of being victimized by the system. And is there anything wrong with that for standing up for yourself? No, there isn't. But once again, there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. Have y'all ever been in a chat where people drop the F bomb and cuss relentlessly, or they don't take a stance for anything? It's like watching somebody present something, but everybody else is telling them what to do. Do you feel very respected in those kind of chats? Or they're talking about other people that aren't even there to defend themselves. And when those people do show up, what do? They block them or they time them out. Well, it's not about cussing, Aquarius. It's about, if I'm going to present something to you, do I have to say the F word and MF every time that I'm talking to talk to you about what I'm trying to get your point across? I mean, I used to do it very early on. I'm no saint, so I'm not standing up here and being self-righteous. When I started my channel, if you go back in some of my chats or some of my videos, I am talking. I am cussing and I'm cussing at people in the chat and things like that. And, I had to understand, look, why should you change who you are because there's other people wanting to attack you? The truth of the matter is, not very many people who talk shit, there we go. See how it happens? That talk crap on these platforms would do it to my face. And if they would, I still might not cuss them back. Because one thing I've learned through life is you don't fight fire with fire. Intelligence wins every time. And all I'm telling you is you must be very mindful of who you're being led by. Because there's some people in these chats that have made creators idols. They idolize them with everything they are. That's why when people say, well, we're a family, well, I love you and this and that, I don't want to be idolized by you. Not because I'm trying to be an a-hole and that I don't appreciate you being here. I don't want to be somebody's idol. I want you to empower yourself and be your own idol. You know what I mean? And that's how I've always been. But I don't know. There's just certain people that I'm just pull away from because of my own moral values and beliefs. And that's okay. They can still be who they are. They can still be who they are, and I'm still going to be me. That's a big one. I'm so surprised at how many people curse out in public in front of children. They're saying in front of their kids, fighting with their man, coming out of Walmart, kid with a dirty face. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Aquarius. I don't think we disagree, Chick. I believe that You believe that I think he's guilty, and that's not my belief at all. I believe in a deeper level of law enforcement than the surface. So a lot of times it comes across as me believing that he's guilty or this or that and the other. I understand the presumption of innocence. It's not the civilians' view out here in the world to try a case publicly. He will be tried by a jury of his peers, and that will be in a courtroom. So that's the only opinion that should ever matter in these cases is the jury of their peers. All this other talk is just mindless talk. People say, well, we don't want to be an echo chamber. Okay, well, you don't want to be an echo chamber, but you never change what you say. You never change it. You never bring any factual how things could be on your side. Like, if I was going to say, let's say for a week, I was going to try to prove to you that Brian was innocent and that they got the wrong person. I would deep dive so deeply into the car tires, into all that stuff to try to prove that there's no what they had contradicts with what he has. But nobody does that. Nobody does the cell phone analysis that they've ever shown. They rely on these experts to be the voice for them. They always name drop people's theories and thoughts and all this other stuff. They're always name dropping and underlining and highlighting, but they don't have their own thoughts. So that's why it's so interesting to me whenever somebody tries to tell me that I'm wrong and they're right, because you're not saying anything different than what everybody else who you've listened to for 2 years is saying about that one case. Well, the documents at this point are the document that would have been coming out in 2023, 2024. So all the documents that we're seeing right now are not documents from 2025. So to react as if they came out in 2025 is something that we are just knowing about. This evidence has been there for 2 years. Just because we didn't know about it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. Remember, there was no evidence against this man. None. The PCA was trash. It was irrelevant. It was this, it was that. I got to memorize by heart what people say about it. Be factual. I read those documents. They're long, they're drawn out. I read those things on a daily so much that you become accustomed to the wording that stick out in those things, you know? But honestly, did you make up your conclusion of that, chick bait? Have you seen a lot of other PCAs, or is that something that you heard somebody say and that you are repeating it? Because that's what I'm talking about. If you're gonna say something like that, have some have some basis behind your thought. Like, show me another PCA that is equal or worse than the PCA that he wrote. You get what I'm saying? And I'm not being confrontational. I'm just saying that's how I've been trying to tell people is like, if you believe what you believe what you believe, but you should be able to put stuff out there on your side other than what other creators have told you or what they've done. Because investigation is not getting on something and replaying a video or looking at a something like that. It's about putting the knowledge forth and the understanding of the criminal act. It's not about having speculation to the point where it's one-sided, where it's your view and your view only, and that's the only thing that makes sense. Your view amongst a lot of other people's views. Perception is 90% people's reality. Well, speculation is just another word for lying. You get what I'm saying? If you speculate, that means that you're lying about the truth. People used to say "in my opinion," but they don't say "in my opinion" anymore. They just speak it as if it's factual. Well, they can say that, Leslie, because who's going to hold them accountable? It isn't until one person after this case gets thrown with a lawsuit of defamation of character, you're going to watch all these people scatter like cockroaches when the lights come on. They're going to scatter. All their videos that they've ever done, they're going to be taken down. They're going to scatter because they don't want defamation suits against them. But they're not smart enough to stop talking. We're 2 years into it, and a lot of people are 2 years into defaming families, communities, all this stuff. But they still keep running their mouthpiece as if they know what's going on. I believe after this case, there's going to be a lot of changes in YouTube. I believe that there's going to be some suits probably dropped on some creators, and they're going to have to face some time. There's a difference between talking about what's being presented from the law enforcement and the documents and the courts and actually having your own defamation of families and everybody in communities and doxing people and putting their faces out there as if they were an accomplice or a part of, or if they were this or if they were that, when you know damn well that they weren't. Watch how many people run and hide after the trial. And they might make an appearance once the smoke clears, and they'll be like, "Well, I've been sick. That's why I haven't posted in a while," or, I was in a hospital, or I was this, or I was that. But they won't ever talk about the case ever again once people start getting hit with lawsuits. Because you tell me that the Gonsalves family, are going to sit back after this case and let happen what happened to their family in everybody's eyes on YouTube without asking for their name to be cleared from all this stuff? I mean, there's been creators that have accused Steve of having something to do with his daughter's murder. I heard something the other day where they were accusing Steve and Stacy of having an affair and all this other stuff. I mean, it just like, what the hell, man? But just wait. Just wait. And they can already start cleaning them up if they want. But you know what? Law enforcement's not stupid. They may believe that Brian was a patsy or he didn't do the crime or all this other stuff, but when it comes to digital forensic evidence, it's sad to say you can't hide anything anymore. Not like you used to. Oh yeah, click, 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 delete, delete, delete. Oh shit, they got my Amazon history where I tried to delete it. Who would have ever thought of that? That you can surf on Amazon and then try to delete your history, and that they can go back into your computer and see what you were trying to do. Who would have ever thought about that? Yeah, they're warning them, but they don't listen. They're not going to shut up. They're not going to shut up because in their mind, they're celebrities. In their mind, they're bigger than the law. They're bigger than, well, they don't live in Idaho, so that don't matter. Well, you live in the U.S. You know, the Freedom of Information Act and the freedom of speech, it only goes so far. I believe that, it's difficult to convict, but if you have the right pieces in place, you can convict. Some of these things that people have done and said and shown, there's pieces right there in plain sight. And they've accused everybody under the sun at the grub truck, on the band field. How at Linda Lane, nameless ghost. They don't even know, but they've accused everybody. 12 gauge. I hate it when the creators count their likes and say, "Come on, guys," instead of paying attention to the chat. That they're already. Oh, of course. Hell, I don't even know how many likes I have until it's all over. I really don't look. Like, I'm on StreamYard. I'm not on YouTube looking at the numbers. I'm not. Whatever goes on YouTube, on that on that one that's streaming or whatever, I don't have an idea of any of that until after I turn this off and start putting the thumbnail picture and all that other stuff. I like that chick bait. Linda Lane sounds like a Stephen King book that never got written. I don't do this for likes or clicks. I really don't. I have a real job. I have a career. I have multitudes of avenues to gain monetary influx into my life. YouTube is not one of those things that I need to do in order to fund my lifestyle. Because as many videos that I've done and as many lives and stuff that I've done, if you really knew how much people really make on YouTube, you'd be shocked. You'd really, I mean, honestly, to be really making some money, you have to be at least 100,000 to 500,000 to a million subscribers to really be making real money. But if $500 is real money to you every month, I guess that's real money. Because the most I've ever made on YouTube, I think, has been about $400, and that was like in the middle of when I started my channel, and it actually started growing. I was doing a lot of Idaho stuff. I was doing a lot of live throughout the day, and I think that's the most I've ever made is like 400. The last couple months, I think I made like $100 after everything's said and done. So I can tell you, I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for likes. I'm not doing it for clicks. I believe that, there's certain things that I stand for, and I made a channel to be able to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear it. That's fine with me. You want to hear it and support it? I appreciate you too. But the fact of the matter is, there's worse cases out there than the Idaho 4 that are getting no kind of coverage. I have the Gilgo Beach on my library. I have, a lot of cases that haven't been discussed. I was doing one the other day that I got copyrighted on. So that's why I decided just to talk this morning because I'm going to play it safe for 90 days because I don't want to lose my channel, even if it's not monetarily for gain or anything like that. I enjoy what I do. It's a hobby for me. you know? Way to go, Aquarius. Way to go. I mean, it's like you just said, it's not how many people are in the chat, it's how many people actually enjoy what you do. You know? Like right now I have 5 people it shows up here. 5 people. I mean, I've had Jennifer Coffindaffer up here. I've had, hopefully one day I'll have Gary Bricado and I'll have Matt Murphy up here. And I'm kind of scared to name things because it seems like the people who I've named recently, other creators have just jumped on them, not like they had any idea and they jump on it. But you know what? If that's them, that's them. That shows you what type of person they are. You know what I mean? Money to some people is not everything. I'd rather be standing for my word than having a truckload of money. And if you honestly think that I'm lying to you, you don't know me. I've had money. I have money. I have things. I have anything that I want. I can go and buy it. If I can't monetarily buy it, I have such good credit, I can get it. So to get on here and, and do like other people do, it's embarrassing to be a part of that community. But what other choice do you have? Because people either are going to be attracted to your channel or they're not. I like her too. She's very open-minded and she's very open to what she says. Thank you, 80s kid. Thank you. It is true though. I mean, those are my thoughts and it's nothing against the person. It's about their lack of morality. And they can try to change it around now. You're probably going to start hearing a lot more, in my opinion, or this hasn't been founded and this is not fact, but it's already too late for some of you. This has been going on for a while, 2 years plus, and you've been spouting a lot of stuff that is not true. And if you see in the documents, you can spin it however you want and you can question it however you want. But if the right people are watching and they've been watching you for a while, they've been recording your stuff. They've been screen recording. They've been doing all kinds of stuff. It might not happen after the case, but I envision it to happen one day. And just watch. Like I say, it's going to be like the light come on and all the cockroaches are going to scatter. I'm glad I never got involved with some of these people because I don't want to be attached to any of that. I don't want to be attached to any of that. You know, a case that I think is interesting right now. They're thinking there's a serial killer in, what was it, Maine? I think Maine, where there's been like 9 bodies in 3 weeks or something like that. You know, that is concerning. That is concerning. You know, but nobody's talking about that. You know, in my line of work, I've been trained to identify patterns. As a therapist, I've been trained to identify patterns, to identify certain levels of individuals deviating from certain things, to spot inconsistencies, to spot the deception, to spot the propensity of somebody going and doing something in the future. I've been trained for all that. So when I see it on here, I may not speak on it, but it doesn't mean that I don't see it. So if I can see it, you don't think law enforcement can see it? You don't think the federal government can see it? I'm just telling you. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Jeff's not a Fed. He's not a Fed. I got to thinking a little bit too, but no, he's not a Fed. If he is, then he's a hell of a good undercover Fed, you know? Well, 80s kid, I've had people on my panel and that I've shared their videos about them believing he was guilty or had the propensity of being guilty. Now, I don't know. They just flipped. All of a sudden, they're on the other side and they're bashing everybody on this side. And it makes me wonder, like, what happened? What happened to these people? And there's been people that believed he was innocent that all of a sudden turned into him being guilty. You know, I don't know. People can think what they want. I'm not trying to be on here talking about you need to change the way you think or the way you act or the way you do things. Those of you that know me know that I'm talking about honesty here. I'm talking honestly because I haven't done this in a while. To be honest, I'm procrastinating doing my laundry. That's what I'm doing, honestly. You know, if I could have somebody do my laundry, keep my truck spotless, and do my dishes and cook, that sounds like a housekeeper and like a person for detailing. I told somebody that if I ever won the lottery, most people would buy big houses, a bunch of cars, and all this. Not me. I'd buy me a plane and I'd hire me some people that needed jobs to do things that I don't like to do. I'd give addicts a second chance. I'd give criminals just a second chance. But the moment that they stole from me or lied to me or running game, they were gone. You know? I don't mind helping people, but some people you just can't help. There's some people you just can't help. You know, it seems like if I was looking back on my life the other day and I was thinking, you know, I'm always trying to convince people the right way to do things and nobody wants to listen. And that's in a lot of areas of my life, from my family to my friends to people that I work with. And I don't just blanketly give my opinion. If somebody asks, I'm going to tell them. It might not like they might not like what I have to say, but I'm gonna be honest with them. But it seems like I'm always trying to convince people to do the right thing, and they always fight me for it. And I think back when I was doing the wrong thing in my addiction, and I wonder, because it's been so long now, I wonder if I fought people the same way. When they told me, hey, you need to be honest. You need to quit lying. You need to quit manipulating. You need to quit calling in sick when you're not sick. You need to quit letting your cross addiction take over. Now I look back on that and I think, damn, I wonder if anything I really say ever gets to people to the point where they they tell themselves, "Oh, you know what? That dude had a point. Let me try to do that, if only just for today." Because I can tell you, my addiction, I couldn't even keep a day solid. I could wake up and be like, I'm going to have a great day. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do this. The moment that I said, I'm not going to do this, I was off and running. Be like, I thought you weren't going to drink today. Oh, I'm just having one. 5 hours later, I thought you weren't going to drink today. It's not like I'm drunk. Closing the bar down. I thought you weren't going to drink today. Ah, everybody needs to have a good time. See how that happens? We can make everything right in our minds. And there's one thing that I've learned is you can't change another person until they're ready to change. Well, thank you for that, Leslie. That's too kind. I just speak it how I see it. You know what? I try to be honest. I try to be open. I try to be transparent. I don't try to be a clown. I don't try to get up here and get you to like me because I'm funny or because I say this or I say that. I am who I am, you know? I've seen a lot of videos going after him lately. Gray is a tough cookie. 80s kids. I've seen a lot of videos going after him. But, if you're a female, be safe out there. I'm not saying necessarily to get you a weapon, but if you live in an environment or you're in a position where you might need some protection, you might get you some kind of protection. They say always carry your keys out with a key that you're not going to use for your car sticking through your finger. So if somebody comes around and grabs you, you just turn and stab them with it and run. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of information. If you're a male or a female, if you get grabbed from behind, don't turn to if it's a male, don't turn and kick him in the genitals. If you can, hit him in the throat as hard as you can. If anything, it's gonna cause them not to be able to breathe. If you can't breathe, you can't hold on to anything. And run like hell and scream. Don't stand there and try to be toe to toe with this person. Don't try to be one up and kick them in the head or anything like that. Run. And I saw something cool that if you're ever thrown in a trunk, don't spend all your energy trying to beat on the trunk lid, but try to open the little part where the back light is, tear the light wires off, and try to push that light thing out of the holder and stick your arm out, stick your hand out and wave because people are gonna either pull that person over or they're gonna call the police because something is abnormal. Yeah, the Adam's apple punch. I saw that and I thought, well, that's smart. If you're ever in the back seat, try to kick out the windows. Teach yourself how to get out of knots that are tied. There's a way to get out of a zip tie. I just don't know at this point. And you can get out of handcuffs. They're not impenetrable. Well, yeah. And once you hit them, you can't get them in the throat, hit them in the eye. You can't see, or bop them in the nose. You ever been hit in the nose? Instantly, your eyes close. Instantly. Be safe. Teach your loved ones how to get away because a lot of people freeze. And that moment of freezing, that moment of ambush, is going to be the moment that whatever perpetrator is using that in their favor, they're going to build on that. Always keep your doors locked. Keep your windows locked and sealed. That's another thing you just brought. If you're being held, always drop. Put all your weight and drop to the ground. Even if they're holding your arm, use your weight to drop to the ground. I'm going to get on here and talk about addiction with Nina once she gives me the green light. Um, GAC, that dude's been around. He's flip flopped so many times. Yeah, me too. I wish I could go back to the 80s. Yeah, that's a good thing, chick. But she did a live. If you didn't catch it yesterday, you might go to her channel. Her name is Warning Label Nina. Go check out the little video she made last night. It got me to thinking wholeheartedly about that should be her channel focus is addiction and recovery because she has a passion for it. I do too, but mine is on a professional level, you know? Not saying that hers isn't helping people, but she can reach people that professionals can't. And that is always needed and it's always awesome. I hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday. And if you're watching this on replay, I didn't say anything that I wouldn't say again if you were in the chat. So I'm not going to say I'm sorry if it's not for you, if you don't like what you hear. I understand if you don't, if you unsubscribe or you don't subscribe. I understand it. I'm not for everybody, but I am true crime. And you can take that to the bank every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Maestro, cue that music. You have a wonderful day.